Welcome to the In My Opinion show with Ronald Barry Robinson and friends. We are working hard to bring our millions of viewers worldwide professional, quality, and dignified programming. The In My Opinion show is brought to you by the Flint Inquirer newspaper, educating, enlightening, and empowering the community. For information, email Ron Parker at 599@msn.com. We have Mr. Henry Hatter.
Good evening, Ron.
Good afternoon, Henry. We have Miss Denise Smith Allen.
Hi, Ronald.
Flint, Michigan's #1 diva.
Oh, my.
Welcome all to the In My Opinion show. Let's talk about the KKK is disbanded, stating blacks are their own worst enemies. No need for the KKK anymore. The KKK leader stepped to the podium, his hood lowered around his shoulders and a look of disgust on his face. He said, "Sorry guys, but this will be our last meeting. We're going out of business." A member stood up and back. "But why, sir?" The leader sighed. "Well, Reverend, the blacks are doing a better job getting rid of themselves than we ever did, so we are no longer needed." There were rumblings and protests. The leader raised his hand to silence the Klan members and said, "Their rap music says more vile things about black women than we ever thought of." The members grudgingly nodded in approval. The Imperial Dragon continued, "And their women write books and make songs that demean black men better than any two speechwriters ever could." Looking down at two men seated who lowered their heads. "They shoot each other constantly," he continued, "and as a group they spend a huge amount of money on cars, liquor, that stuff they call bling bling, and the proliferation of rap music. As they talk about all that in their magazines, and nobody needs us to talk about how a lot of their sorry butts keep playing the race and victim cards while complaining that other groups are surpassing them in economic development and supposedly getting more attention in schools. Hell, they even support a so-called black hair DVD that a white man is making money on, and 4 sequels at $20 a pop, talking about how Koreans have taken over the black hair industry without acknowledging that black entrepreneurs had 100 years to get a monopoly or entrenchment in the industry that Madam C.J. Walker founded 100 years ago, but got out-hustled and out-strategized while spending investment capital elsewhere. Let's face it, they're being foisted by their own pretards. That means smoke bombs used to blow indoors. I'm not advocating any violence, but that's what petards means. That's Webster's dictionary. That's out of Webster's dictionary. Some members were looking for a dictionary while most members nodded as it hit them that their jobs was finished, that blacks had become their own worst enemy. The leader shook his head. "It's time to go back to our regular lives as policemen, judges, and congressmen and leave the business of getting rid of blacks to blacks. They're just better at it than us." He then threw his hood on the ground and walked off the stage. Thus ended the last KK meeting. There is a message here. I truly hope we are all able to take away something from this. This message is so true. Why is it that in many instances that blacks have these sort of inequities, if that's a good word to use? Denise, what is your thoughts?
Well, listening to that, I think that was kind of done with some levity, but there are many, many truths to what was said in terms of the things that some of our members of the black community who are unaware, ignorant, or just so disillusioned that a lot of their energy now has turned on itself. It is unfortunate, but it is a reality. Now, and that is a problem, but the problem can be dealt with and will continue to be dealt with by way of education and informing. And sometimes I feel as though it's a broken record with me, but I'm in belief that a lot of people do things out of pure ignorance. And I think that once they have been exposed to other ideas and other ways of handling their lives and feeling better about themselves as individual by way of education and other things, that it can stem the tide of the self-destructiveness that has permeated our community. We have a responsibility, the older persons in our community, we need to be more vocal and talking to our young people who are not getting it right, and because we have a responsibility to them, because if we had not imparted certain information to them, or I should say had imparted certain information to them, then they would be more responsible than what they are now. So, there are many problems, but again, there are some solutions. And I'm a solution-oriented person because at this point we have talked the problem to death. So I think that we have to be responsible and handle each individual and talk with them and help them to realize their potential and what they can do as far as living in this society.
And that's one thing that, in my opinion, show is going to do to our viewers and anybody else out there that will listen. We're going to bring these issues to you, whether you like it or not. We are going to bring these issues to you. We're going to confront them. It's past time of keeping our heads in the sand. All right. Mr. Hatter, what is your thoughts?
Well, Ron, I particularly enjoyed that. Most of what we learn is through observation, just by watching other people, what they do, given standards of conduct, and looking at the outcomes. Well, this looks like a satire by the KKK, but there are many truths, as Denise has said, in what they say. And as you know, Black Americans have had this prevailing point of view for many, many years. They're their worst enemies. They don't work well together. We can't collaborate together. We can't build things together. We've been in this country for many years. We've been free since 1863, and we have done little to amass the wealth that Chinese and Hispanics and many of the other culture groups have done.
What do you think that is?
Because we don't work well together. It's something, and yet we will attest to each other. When you ask us, are we free to use our own minds and make decisions that are particularly beneficial to us? And everyone you ask will say yes. If that's true, then they must be responsible for the decisions that they make. And so I'm saying that when other people look at it, and the Ku Klux Klan is not the only segment of society that's looking at this behavior. This is a well-known behavior. They won't discuss it in school systems, but yet they know that. And
well, why don't they discuss this in
because it becomes a racial issue, and I imagine many whites feel that they've really created a situation that has been difficult by having people as slaves. And we have never completely divorced ourselves from slavery. We're always looking back. But there comes a time that many people will tell you it's time to look ahead, to build new systems, to grow some, to go where other people are and where you want to be. Not to wallow in your body fluids, but to move ahead. And I think the Ku Klux Klan in this area is saying pretty much the same thing. They say, I rest my case because we can be no more destructive to Black Americans than they are to themselves. And it's always good to know what other people think of us, particularly our critics, because our critics can tell stories that we cannot tell. We're too close to the issues.
Any further thoughts, Denise?
Well, we have some people who have what we might call some symbols of success. And success is a real nebulous term because there are people who view success as having some material possessions, maybe a bigger house and all of the trappings that go with it, whether they be athletes or persons that are in theater or the movies and things of that nature. But we are forgetting that there are a wealth of persons who have aspired to do some things that are not getting the credit that they deserve. We have many lawyers and doctors and people who are working behind the scenes and have been very effective in breaking ground and doing some wonderful things that are not on the front page of the newspaper or any of the news journals that are presented. And so our young people don't have an opportunity to see as many people that are doing well as they should. So therefore, they look at the rappers or they look at the persons that are doing movies as their role models. And so again, I think it's incumbent upon family members to bring it to their attention that there are other people out here that are doing things, and if they want a better life, basically it comes down to education, and it comes down to exposing yourselves to some of the possibilities. And we're talking about positive possibilities because we have so many of our young people who are disillusioned, discouraged, and quite frankly don't see a point to it all, so they want to get theirs now. So we have to help them understand that immediate gratification is not where it's at, that people had to struggle to get where they got, and they didn't just, go up the flight of stairs from the bottom to the top, that they had to go in increments to get up there, and we have to show them. So again, education, 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 and I'm not just speaking about a formal sit-down classroom education. I'm talking about grandparents, significant people in a family that have experienced some things, to sit down and talk to the younger generation, explain to them the cost that enabled them to get where they're at, and to let them know that right now, even with the economic downturns, there's still some people out here getting jobs, okay, but they're prepared for them by way of education and training. And so we cannot sit back on our laurels, and we cannot continue to blame the white man, because it's not about that anymore. It's about us taking responsibility for ourselves.
I want to follow with the comment, Denise. Many black Americans will agree that we were better off before integration than we were after integration. Because African Americans in those days had their own businesses, they had their own schools, they had their own movie houses. They did everything that conceivably mainstream society did. And they did it quite well. And we had some successful people in those days come out of black colleges and universities, and not white colleges. All black Americans did not go to black colleges, but around the country we had just significant success. So, and there were people who gave rise to the people who ramped themselves up to this day to improve the quality of life for black Americans. And a lot of those people did not have the opportunities that people have today who don't use those opportunities, like you say, to educate and educate and educate. But they expect for that success to come from some other means, and it's not there. So we need to, as we look back, over time, we need to look back at the positive things that made us successful as people today. And those were all of the contributions that black Americans made pre desegregation. So, and we forget that. We forget that we were an independent people. We're living within the macrocosm of the United States successfully, like the Japanese do, and like the Chinese do, and like the Ku Klux Klan says, well, why didn't we capture some of this information on healthcare and become the world's largest black people's healthcare system in the world? But we didn't. We let somebody else have it. Like we say, we complained that the Arabs are taking it, and everybody else is taking it, and we're doing nothing. We're just complaining. We need to, as you've already said it, but I agree with you. So this criticism from the Ku Klux Klan is an enabling one. We will do more to try to encourage our people to do better, particularly with education and with a work ethic that would benefit our quality of life for the future.
Mhm. And Lee Iacocca made a profound statement: lead, follow, or get out of the way. And I followed that statement, for the last 20 years, and it works. Black folks, get off your ass and do something positive. All of you. Stop waiting for the white man to give you a handout, because he's not. It's that simple. Southern Poverty Law Center. Just into the, in my opinion, message board. I hope you've been following the Shirley Sherrod controversy. It's a striking example of how the right-wing media, particularly Fox News, is doing everything it can to frighten white conservatives by portraying President Obama and those in his administration as anti-white racist. If you don't know the story, Ms. Sherrod was until recently an employee of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Fox News showed a video of a speech she gave in 1986 that suggested that she had declined to help a struggling white farmer because of his race, but the video had been heavily edited. The full tape told an entirely different story, one of redemption. The reality is that Ms. Sherrod came to realize the struggle is really about poor people, and she helped save the white family's farm. But because of the original misleading reports, Ms. Sherrod was summarily fired from her job. Thankfully, the White House and Agricultural Secretary Tom Vilsack quickly realized their mistake and have now apologized and offered Ms. Sherrod a new position. We're happy Ms. Sherrod has been utterly vindicated, but the truth is that Fox News and other media outlets are doing real damage to our country by spreading false hopes and bogus conspiracy theories. The Glenn Becks of the world are fomenting rage among those who can't accept the demographic and political changes taking place in our country and the progress we're making toward justice and intolerance. To find out more, type in Sherrod on your computer and hit enter. It's that simple. For those individuals spewing all this gutter trash, they should be arrested and tried for hate crimes. For further information on the story and others, go to Southern Poverty Law Center on the internet. This was a horrible mistake of justice, in my opinion, that affected Ms. Sherrod. I was under the impression, the news media is supposed to be balanced. Okay? How it got to the point, not only the Fox, but a number of the other news outlets out there, okay, a lot of the truths to a lot of these stories are bandaged up, different slants put on in those editorial board meetings before we ever get it. And it shouldn't be that. The news media, has a right, has a mandate to provide accurate information to all of us. What is your thoughts, Henry?
Well, Ron, I think that there are news media whose ideas or platforms are determined by either a political platform, one or the other. And political platforms are extremely rigid in what they do, what they say, and what they stand for. And I can see where you're going with that question, like Fox News, for example. But they're on the other side, there's the one that support a Democrat platform. Very rigid in the positions that they take. So newspapers themselves, the characterization of a newspaper I've seen in print, as they characterize it for human consumption, is without fear or favor. That's what newspapers should be about. Would you agree, Nick, Denise?
Absolutely.
They should print media materials without fear or favor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But there are some that do. Do like the clergy. There are people who don't bind themselves to all of the political BS that goes on in the world. they go right down the line. Those are not the popular people. They don't make the great tracks in the sand that many of those who are on the partisan sides of one or the other. But, I think that with respect to Ms. Sherrod here, that I think that they recognize the mistake that they made. There was a judge that...
Well, NAACP also made the same mistake, all right?
Yeah.
They castigated her because they fell for that bullshit
Platform
from
stuff.
from Fox News.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, it's... and they did the right thing in going back, and this is not unusual. That happens all the time. You can be targeted. But unlike the case dealing with the Detroit mayor, which was blatant and outright ridiculous, but in this case with Mrs. Sherrod, she probably wished that she had made some statements or aligned herself.
Yeah, but see, that statement she made was like, I think 24 years ago.
It does make a difference. Your record follows you for life.
She was giving a testimony, I think, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in her delivery, she was reliving, you know what I mean, where she was, all right, but where she wanted to be, and in my opinion, it was redemption, okay, for her thoughts. That's just like on this show, I have said once or twice, and I apologize for that too, in terms of when I would get on the airplane, all right, I would see somebody of Arab descent, okay, and I'm saying, you know what I mean, and I realized what I was doing, and I was ashamed of myself.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
a public statement, and you were speaking for an institution, and this microphone, and in my opinion, is an institutional device, because it's a communication device. You were speaking as an institution, not as an individual. And the things that we say and do, you must be, as Denise word, favorite word is accountable.
But no, you're wrong. I wasn't speaking as an institution. I was speaking. I mean,
Were you speaking out of the airwaves?
Right in the studio, okay?
Okay.
Because I wasn't raised that way,
I know you were. But
okay?
it's
To
unfortunate.
have racism,
Well,
within me, although we all do.
I think what has happened though, because we do read the newspaper, we do watch various media outlets, and if you see a certain thing happen over and over again, subliminally, those things will be imparted into your mind. And so this is what happens. And so therefore, with all of us, I mean, we have to do due diligence ourselves in terms of being critically analytical of anything that we see or hear. Because everyone has said now that we've rushed to judgment. Well, every day we are bombarded with information. And so we have to really sit down and say, okay, what is being said? Who are the sayers of what is being said and what's being left out? Okay, so that takes some critical analysis on our behalf. But the average Joe Blow doesn't see it that way.
And he can say anything he wants to the average, but you can't. You belong to the public.
But I do say anything I want to say.
But not on this.
On this.
Well,
I do.
like Denise says, that we may feel that way, and there are some indications that there's legitimacy in feeling that way. When you see incident one right there, another occurring, like the police chief said. He said, we have put a color and a gender on crime. Did you hear him say that?
But I didn't have to hear that.
Yeah, but also the same thing happened in this case that you're talking about.
Right.
When you see these incidents occurring over and over and over, what we're doing is in society putting race and other sensitive measurements to this phenomenon. If you're talking about, like, for example, bombings, or you're talking about killing of thousands of people at one time in an open setting. So we're not saying that you're wrong, but we just have to measure how we talk about these things on the air, and we're all guilty of it. Yeah.
Well, all I attempt to do, is tell the truth as I believe it to be, and I do a considerable amount of research on this stuff as well.
You don't have to apologize for
Yeah,
your
you don't
Oh
have
no,
to
I'm not
apologize.
apologizing. I'm
No,
not
that's what it
apologizing.
sounded
In my
like.
opinion, so
That's exactly right. That's why it's called in my
All right,
opinion.
well, that's what it sounded like.
I'm not
Don't do that.
apologizing for
Don't
nothing.
start crying
You
here
know what I mean?
on the platform, okay?
Schools are going too far when they handcuff, shackle kindergarten and first grade graders to chairs and charge them with felonies for breaking minor school rules. Those that handcuff and shackle kindergarten, first and second graders, and the school officials, and the school officials that sanction such behavior should all be charged with child abuse, in my opinion. In a short minute or two that we have left, Denise, what is your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it goes without saying, a child 5 or 6 years old being shackled, that's just, that's inhumane. And anybody who thinks that they need to do that, there's something wrong with them.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I mean, we have ways to deal with children that are unruly, and it doesn't come down to having to shackle them like they're some animal.
Yeah, for minor infractions, what is your thoughts?
Absolutely unacceptable.
Exactly.
The end of point.
Right.
At this time, we must bring the In My Opinion show to a close, but first we want to thank our fantastic staff for making these shows possible. And until next time, this is Ronald Barry Robinson and Friends saying, stay focused.